Greetings, and welcome to Beatles Stuffology, where two old friends sit around and talk BS, Beatles stuff, on a track-by-track basis, pretty much for the sake of it. My name is JG McQuarrie, and I'm here with my co-host, Andrew Dickens. Say hi, Andrew.
Hello, how are you?
I'm alright, thank you. How are you?
I am fine. We always slip into that broadcast little thing about asking how you are, when of course we've just been chatting for the last 20 minutes. We know how each other, but we got to keep up the pretense because that's what happens in, I was going to say broadcasting, but this is very much the definition of narrowcasting, isn't it?
Well, very much so. Yes, this is in no way, shape, or form being broadcast in any traditional sense. But it's nice. It reassures our audience. It lets them know that we are happy wherever we may be heard.
Yes, schema. It's all about the schema, isn't it? We've got to do things in the way that people understand, because if we suddenly start doing random stuff, then we might lose our dozen of listeners.
Hey, we're doing well with our listeners at the moment. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, well, that's really, really good. Hopefully we'll get some correspondence soon to let us know either what we could do to broaden our audience or what we need to do in order to prostitute ourselves in order to make some money by advertising things. We don't want to advertise things. You
No,
don't want to advertise things either, do you? Because it would
no,
involve
God, no.
more editing and
Yeah, I don't need to do more editing. That's absolutely fine. I'm
no.
I'm quite happy with the level of editing I do now. So yes, also we can claim to be good socialists and not be kowtowing to the capitalist imperialist system, whereby we have to, as you say, prostitute ourselves in order to earn a few quid just for the sake of talking about these songs.
Yes. Speaking of talking about these songs, what talking about these songs are we talking about today?
Well, we're talking about Here, There, and Everywhere.
Just for the yeah, I did know that, by the way. It's just that the schema of things, we need to introduce that to the listener, and it was just a convenient way of doing it.
Okay.
You'd worry if I didn't know what song we were talking about. Think, I've now got to think of some things to say about here, there, and everywhere.
Well, I would be a little bit concerned about that, given how long we've been doing this, given
Yeah,
why we're
yeah, yeah,
doing it,
yeah.
and given the album that we're currently listening to. I would be a little bit on the disappointed side if you just waltzed in going, what are we doing today? Oh, I don't know. It's probably Strawberry Fields. It usually is. That's fine.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. This is the song with the finger snaps.
Hey, it sure is. Good. All right. Let's actually start a conversation about the song then. Before we delve into the minutiae and the little bits and pieces of it. Oh, this is going to be a very coherent episode. I can tell already. All right. Let's start at the beginning. What do you actually think of this song?
Right, okay, so I'm going to be very reductionist on this. I think it's a really nice song. There you go. Is that okay?
That's fine. Yes. Thank you very much.
I am I'm very much of the opinion that this song, when you listen to side one through in one go, you really like the song for the period of time that it hangs around, and then afterwards you've that's it, it's gone. I think it's when you're in its presence, it's a lovely, lovely thing. But it is not a song that I think has a majorly lasting impression on me. And also, I think it's a song that I have to say, JG, I'm going to pick holes in your format. I'm blaming you for the format. I'm not convinced it's entirely your idea, although actually I think it might be. This whole bit about over analyzing each song in its turn means that all of these songs that were created in moments in a pop culture format, you can spend too long listening to them and trying to find things to say to the point where you end up just spotting flaws. Let this song wash over you and you'll really like it. Start delving into it and you end up with opinions like, it's a bit Radio 2, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I think it is, but it depends whether you regard that as a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, one of the aspects of writing that both Lennon and McCartney were aware of, especially in the early days, was that they weren't expecting to be, writing pop songs forever and ever, amen. They thought they would probably end up writing songs for other people. And in the early 60s, that meant writing things like standards. They would be writing songs for, I mean, I don't want to say like Frank Sinatra or whatever. Their ambition probably wasn't that high at that point, but it's that kind of stuff. It's writing songs which become standards. And that's kind of the category that Here, There, and Everywhere falls into. It clearly has antecedents in some of the ballads that crop up in the first two or three albums, sort of stuff like If I Fell and those kind of songs, which also come across as being in that genre of standards, if you can call standards a genre. But Here, There, and Everywhere is clearly like the best implementation of that side of McCartney's writing I think that we've had to this point. So you can say, yeah, it's a bit Radio 2, and that's not necessarily an unfair judgment, but it's also where it's coming from, and that idea of having songs which can be, because I mean, there's a bajillion covers of this version. Of course, I'm not really going to talk about cover versions in this episode, but there's millions of them. And it is for precisely that reason. It's a very easy song to understand. It's very, I think it probably is very sincere in what it's trying to do. But yeah, I agree with you that, for a lot of it, allow the sentiment to overwhelm your sort of critical facilities, because that's often how it works with standards.
Sometimes I write lots of notes, but for this, I just wrote delightful, like floating on fluffy, pillowy clouds of soft silk, V Radio 2. And that's the extent of my contribution, because it is delightful, and it's sweet, and it's charming, and I suppose we could then get into that bit about how it's a nice contrast with some of the cynical things that have already come out of Mr. Harrison's mouth on this album. And you need the light and the dark in order to have the whole. Okay, sorry, cliched stuff over there. I promise I'm going to behave properly from now on.
Okay, well that's good to know. With a lot of this song, the idea of it being just this kind of like warm, lovely embrace, I think is kind of it's what makes it such a charming piece, and there is a real sincerity to it that I think, especially with McCartney, like he writes a lot of love songs, I think it's fair to say, and they don't always come across as sincere. They don't always come across as genuine. And I mean, this is relatively early on in his career, obviously, but there is a sense where he feels like he is really investing in it, and it's not the only time. If you take something like Maybe I'm Amazed, like that's clearly very invested in as well, but it's post Beatles, but it's a very different kind of investment in the sentiments which are being expressed. But there are dozens, maybe hundreds at this point, of kind of McCartney love songs which don't really have that level of sincerity in them. They're the kind of songs that he can turn his hand to very easily, but not necessarily always with the most effective sort of delivery, or with the most sort of high emotional content. But this one really stands out because it really does sound like he means it. It really sounds like this is a charming little song that he has written, and he's invested in it, and it makes the world of difference.
At some point, we should do a content analysis of Jane Asher inspired songs that makes it sound like he loves her, and Jane Asher inspired songs that makes it sound like he just wants to get away as quickly as possible, or he wants to control the living daylights out of her. And let's see what side of the coin it ends up on, because he does. There is genuine affection in here. And I love, some of these lines are really nice, like watching her eyes and hoping I'm always there is that's genuinely touching. Yeah, he's onto a good one here, and evidence, if you like, of what Mr. Lennon would talk about, in that McCartney would often get to the point where he was happy enough with the lyric and then do no more. This, you feel, is one that he probably did craft a bit and really want to produce something of some quality and depth, which would then fit in with the suggestion that this is his song that's inspired by God only knows. Now, pardon the expression, but God only knows if that is true. But you can see why people might make those associations. Certainly in terms of the timing, certainly in terms of the tone and the feel and the subject matter as well. And there seems to be a link, whether it's causation or correlation. Who knows? Who knows? I'm sure even Mr. McCartney these days probably doesn't know either.
Well, indeed. And what's also nice about it is that I think the way that everybody is contributing to the song as well does help broaden it out a little bit. And I don't mean to criticize something like Eleanor Rigby or Yesterday for not having other Beatles on it, but also it's just nice that this is a group effort. Now, our podcast audience can only listen to this, but obviously I can see you because we're doing this as a visual thing, and you are silently clicking your fingers. So, would you like to talk about some finger clicks whilst we brush up against the other members' contributions?
Well, okay, right. So my hearing's not that great, and I have admitted many times that I'm not always the closest listener to something. So I was mildly amused when looking at MacDonald's tone, when we have not just McCartney and Lennon, not just McCartney, Lennon and Harrison, but McCartney, Lennon, Harrison, and Starr all being credited with finger snaps. Love it. Absolutely love it. I mean, I can remember Noel Gallagher being interviewed years, I think probably around the time of the second Oasis album, and talking about the importance of recording real hand claps in the audience, not synthesized stuff, not sampled, but real hand claps. And I like the fact that all four of them were probably there together doing these finger snaps that, you're going to tell me I'm completely wrong here. I don't know if I've ever actually heard them on the record.
I'm not going to tell you that you're completely wrong there. Not really 100%. Like, I think they are. I mean, if you do a really, really close listen to them, okay, I sure you can probably pull them out. But
Textures,
yeah,
layers.
exactly. Not everything needs to be up front and sort of immediately clear. It's adding texture to the mix. That's exactly correct.
It's like a bay leaf in your cooking. You don't specifically taste it, but you notice when it's not there.
Exactly. So yeah. So finger snaps are very much the bay leaves of music. That's what we're saying here.
Well, certainly on this song anyway.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, yeah. Look. I think the one of the interesting things about this record are some of the titles. So obviously we've had "I'm Only Sleeping." Love that as a phrase. Here, there, and everywhere is really effective as a phrase. And we'll have other things like, "Tomorrow Never Knows," "She Said," "She Said." And again, these are really effective, and they evoke that something different is happening. And even that title on its own suggests that, you know what, I've put a bit more thought into this. I've not picked up a Ringoism. I've picked up something from the song that I think emphasizes what it's all about, and I'm going to use it. So I think that indicates that if they did decide to put some finger snaps on, they really thought there was a good purpose to it. There is so much more thought that is happening in these recordings, and the willingness to try something a little bit different, and that's utterly fantastic. So I think this is a genuinely delightful, fluffy song. But again, if you want me to start going a little bit deeper in, I say, well, I don't really like the opening. The sound of McCartney's voice is a bit. I like the fact that McCartney can do Helter Skelter, and he can do Here, There, and Everywhere. But I kind of like him when he's in the middle. And I wouldn't want to listen to too many songs of him doing this voice.
That's fair. I think one of the interesting things about the discourse around this song is the way in which it's regarded. And McCartney has often said, "Oh, it's my favorite song of mine." I mean, okay, fine. You have to pick one, right? So, okay, if you're going to pick one,
Yeah,
this is as good a one as any. I mean, he could have said Yesterday, and I don't think anybody would have questioned it, or whatever. So, there's no doubt that by picking a song like Here, There, and Everywhere, he is making what would be a common consensus choice, and also an extremely uncontroversial one. If he had picked I don't know, Martha, My Dear, then that might have been a slightly more controversial choice, but nobody's really going to question whether Here, There, and Everywhere is a reasonable pick for his favorite song. And I love this song. I think it's a really great song. I appreciate everything about it. But I think it is one where the critical opinion is a little bit out with the actual merits of the song. Which is not to say that it isn't a brilliant song, because it is. It self-evidently is. But I don't know that. I certainly don't think it's the best song McCartney's ever written. I'm not sure it's the best song McCartney's written on Revolver. So I definitely don't think that it's at that kind of level. But it is one where I think sort of fan consensus has really kind of calcified around this idea that it simply is, you know, his best song, or like one of the best things that he's ever written. And I find that interesting because I'm not sure if, like, you may criticize the format of this podcast all you like, but you've still been doing it for years, so too bad. But you know, I think if you are to go into this song in any kind of like analytical way, it is a beautiful song, but that's all it is, and that sounds so. You know, I don't mean that to be sounding as harsh as it does, but that's what it is. But that's all it is. Do you know what I mean?
I do, yeah. And yes, you're right. I'm in it for life now, basically. Or the one that the thought that occurred to me was I am in blood stepped in so far that should I wait any basically yeah, I'm comparing myself now to Macbeth, who's murdered people and is now saying, well, in for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah. Well,
Um, so it's probably fair to say that your view is somewhere between MacDonald, who says that the song's overall effect is chintzy and rather cloying, and Mr. Jay Lennon of New York, who in 1980 said, one of my favourite songs of the Beatles. I'm just going to, for emphasis, of the Beatles.
yes, not of McCartney's.
I wonder, I do wonder if some of that critical appreciation stems from the fact it is universally regarded by people in the Beatles as being a thing of beauty, and therefore it's not that controversial. You're not going to pee off Lennon fans by saying this is a nice song. You're not going to annoy, so it works like that. And their point of view is, or rather Lennon's point of view, is upheld by, as we know, the master of pop reviews of the 1960s, Mr. R. Davis, who said this is the third best track on the album.
Well, I mean, who could argue with Mr. Davis?
He says it's nice, like one instrument with the voice and guitar merging, which is fine actually. That's a salient point. Yeah, yeah. Am I going to have a quick look to see if I can remember which were the best two songs on the album? Anyway, he quite like "Got to Get You Into My Life." Do, 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 do. But there you go. So yeah, Ray Davis, everyone. So your view is sort of somewhere in between.
Yeah, I'm quite comfortable with that. Well, okay. What do you think? Let's ask. Let's be having you. I
I
mean, do you agree with Mr. McCartney? Do you agree with Mr. Lennon? Do you agree with Mr. Davis, or do you agree with Mr. McQuarrie?
Well, I'd be interested to know because it's MacDonald, isn't it, who says that who says it's McCartney's favourite among his songs, with "Yesterday" a close second. But I'm not quite sure where he's quoting that from because there isn't actually a footnote for that claim there.
I don't know where McDonald gets this quote from, but I think McCartney refers to that in Many Years From Now. I think he says that it's his favorite song there, so it
Okay.
is something which has been repeated, but I don't know where McDonald's source is.
I think if you were to ask me what my five favorite films, what my five favorite songs of all time, and all of that it would change, fairly regularly. I might have a few consistent things in there. The Third Man is always going to be one of my top five favorite films because just love it for so many reasons. But the songs will change, and they change because of how you feel. The circumstances around you listening to it and lots of things. I wonder if a lot of how he feels about those songs represents that time of his life. Obviously, Yesterday and Here, There, and Everywhere are not too far apart in terms of time, but we are talking about peak Beatles, about them, be not just at the peak, but then sustaining the peak. So he may well have wonderful associations with those, and nothing else has quite managed to meet it. But at the moment, I would say, Golden Slumbers is rocking the top two or three Beatles songs slash McCartney songs. And frankly, if I never listen to Maybe I'm Amazed again, my life will be much the worse for it. You can do that. You can sort of go, those are really, really powerful songs that really speak to me on a consistent basis from his catalogue. This one, it washes over me and it's lovely, but when it's gone, it's gone. And that's okay too. Some songs are like that. I don't think all songs should be deep and meaningful. After all, that's one of the essence of pop culture. You get that instant emotional response. Oh, this is nice. Or if you like, I can't be bothered to press that button or to skip this song forward. It's nice enough to listen to, but when it's gone, it's gone.
Well, that's fair enough. I I don't disagree with any of that, but I think this is a. I'm going to ask you a question, and I think it's a. I'm going to ask you it because you've kind of it's an expression that you've used before previously, indeed, on this very album. Um, do you think that this is a very good album track?
Yes.
Good,
Did you
but
want more?
that's it. That's my point. Do you think it extends sort of beyond just being a like a really great album track? Because I think that's kind of the thing as well. It's not one of the songs that's it's not one of the signature singles from this album. It's not one of the ones that are going to crop up on a lot of sort of compilations and that kind of stuff. But it is a song that has grown legs and massively kind of gone beyond what it is. So it's that perspective. That's kind of why I'm asking the question between where it sits as the way it functions on Revolver and as it sits as something which has kind of become a standard or a classic, if you like.
I think it's one of those songs that when you were a kid in a record shop, picking up the cassette or the piece of vinyl, especially in the secondhand record shop, and you and in the pre-internet age, and you were looking down the list of songs on the album, you probably knew Eleanor Rigby, and you probably knew Yellow Submarine, but you may not have known any of the others on there. And as a result, you're then thinking, well, is it a lesser work? Surely, if it was brilliant, I would have heard it. So there's that kind of unfamiliarity about it that then when you listen to it, when I listened to it first time on Revolver, the chances are that I probably did have that. That's quite nice, but there's nothing in it that I really think makes me go, wow, I am blown away by that. There's nice harmonies. There's some really thoughtful, kind, loving lyrics in there. But there isn't one thing that I can really pin my best of hat onto, in the way that in other songs you could probably isolate an individual thing that makes the hair on the back of your neck tingle and go, yeah, this is one I'm going to live with forever. So I do wonder then if some people who really love this song love it because of some other association. I can imagine this being a song that, it's going to sound really terrible, couples love,
Yeah,
or that,
absolutely.
that
Yeah.
maybe some people, I'm not sure how they do it, but a first dance kind of thing, or this is our song, or something like that, or some memory that they just then associate with falling in love, because it's nice, but it's not great. But then if you put it on side two of Help, I reckon it becomes an even better song because of the context of some of that meh stuff that's alongside it. or just imagine on this on Beatles for Sale. I mean, it would be the best song on the album by a country mile. So some of that context is important. We've got Eleanor Rigby on this. We've got, okay, so lyrically I don't like Taxman, but musically it's phenomenal. Love You Too, there's bits which is just pure genius. I'm Only Sleeping has some really effective parts on. So it doesn't quite zip in relation to that. And then also you've got to consider that you then go from this to Yellow Submarine, which if you're after a Beatles album that rocks, and parts of this does, I really like Dr. Robert and She Said, for example, and Got to Get You Into My Life. Things like that, or Good Day Sunshine, even. Or Pluck from the previous album, Drive My Car. If that's the kind of Beatles music you like, then you've actually got quite a barren 6 minutes here of nice melodies and playful bits and bobs and backing vocals and finger snaps and funny sounds. So actually, if the rock part is your thing, you could argue that these two songs kind of block the momentum of the album. So there's potentially quite a lot going on there, which I think is a long way of saying I agree with you, but I'm not quite sure what it is I'm agreeing with.
Okay, well, as long as you're agreeing with me, that means I'm right, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that. That's fine. I think with a lot of the way that Revolver is constructed, I'm not going to go into this in too much detail because we'll have our album chat once we've covered all the individual songs, of course. But with a lot of the way that Revolver develops, it's kind of what you were saying before. Like there's a lot of stylistic breadth on this album, and
Yeah,
having like a classic love ballad like this is one of the aspects that give this album its breadth. Yeah, it's sandwiched in between, for an at the time unique kind of experiment in Indian music and kids song slash psychedelic classic, depending on where you want to stand on that particular song. And on the other side of them, yeah, you've got I'm Only Sleeping, which again is not like anything else, and She Said, and I love She Said so much. It's just an amazing song, and it's almost like the way that Revolver develops stylistically in music. It's almost kind of like a corkscrew. It's almost kind of it's a turn and it's a turn and it's a turn, and every turn is another element, another piece which is being put in place to construct this kind of just extraordinary album. This great work of art, and Here, There, and Everywhere is part of the turn of that corkscrew.
yeah,
Other screws are
yeah.
available, but that's the one I most closely associate with. So it's part of that development through the course of the album, and the way that it holds the attention, because again, like nothing on this album is over sort of 3 minutes and 5 seconds or something like that. So it is there, but if it's not exactly your bag, it's not going to hang around long enough to really, I don't think, derail the momentum of the album. But equally, if it is, then it's again, it's a perfect bridge between Love You Too and Yellow Submarine. So again, the album turns and you get something else and something else and something else. So contextually, I think it works absolutely perfectly.
But there's an interesting bit to think about them, because there's a lot more texture on side one with going from Taxman to Eleanor Rigby to I'm Only Sleeping, back to Love You Too, then Here, There, and Everywhere, Yellow Submarine, finishing with She Said. So there's three kind of punchy ones there. I'm not including Eleanor Rigby in that. But then if you look at side two, it's pretty much all punchy, with the exception of For No One. And I think I prefer, you can in a couple of months' time when we're talking about this, you can remind me. I'm perhaps being a hypocrite at that stage if I'm saying something different. But I think that's why For No One stands out more for me than Here, There, and Everywhere, because it sits in as, if you like, the relief of a really punchy side two, whereas this is one of, like, I'm Only Sleeping and Yellow Submarine, that is not, that lacks the same kind of punch. But then it's also worth pointing out the fact that um, you're right. The album does ramp up from She Said onwards. And I think that probably means a lot more to people who've listened to it on CD than people who've listened to it on vinyl. But like you say, that's for another day. Um, yeah. So you didn't listen to covers
No,
of this, or
I started listening to cover, but again, there's so many, and I don't want to, we don't talk about covers every single week, and so it's all right to take a week off when I'm not going to go into great detail about it. But like, yeah, there are hundreds of cover versions of this song. My brief dip in the toe of cover versions is, yeah, they all basically sound like this, and then that doesn't really give you anywhere interesting to go, so I don't really have anywhere interesting to go with it. Yeah, it is, I mean, I don't want to keep coming back to the S word, but it's a standard, like, I don't want to say anybody can knock it out, but also anybody can knock it out. It's an interesting little song to play. There's a lot of chord changes in it for a song that sounds sort of relatively sort of calm. It's not actually the easiest song to play. It takes a little bit of work to get the timings right and the shifts in it, but yeah, most of the cover versions just sound like this. So I don't have a great deal to contribute on that front unless you do.
nope.
Okay, good.
I didn't listen to any.
Okay, well that makes it nice and clear then, doesn't it? All right. Anything else you want to say about this song? I think I know the answer to this question, but
no. I'm fine. I think we've given listeners stupendous value for money
yes,
so far.
That's because we've charged them nothing. All right, give us the score.
Oh, yeah. See, that's a tough one. I am going to say it's a high seven.
High seven. So that'd be 7.5 then.
No, that would be seven. I'm not giving halves, but it's yeah, but I'm not rounding up either. So but I'm going to stick with seven, but it has aspects of an eight.
Okay, interesting.
Stick that on your spreadsheet.
I have. That's literally what I've just done.
Aspects of an eight.
Oh God, that sounds like an album that Rush would release. Anyway,
Shares some of the characteristics of an eight, or it's yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Oh God, I don't know whether to give it 7.5 or 8. I'll give it an 8. That's fine. Yeah, sure. Go on. It is a beautiful little song. I do like it.
Yeah, yeah. I had nothing more to say. Stop pausing and expecting me to fill. Get on with the end of it. Come on.
All right. Fine. Okay. Fine. We're done. This song may be beautiful, but our ability to end this episode is not. However, you can really get a hold of us. You can contact us by email. We are BeatlesStuffology@gmail.com, and we're Beatles Stuffology on Instagram. You can also find my blog at www.jgmcquarrie.scot, where I write about books and films and TV and computer games and just whatever catches my attention. Please like, rate, and review us on whatever podcatcher you're using so that more people can find the show. Next episode, we have a yellow submarine. But until then, keep listening.